Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Carolina Morning Meditations. I'm your host, Russ McCullough, coming to you live from the heart of the Carolina backcountry in Mint Hill, North Carolina. It is a somewhat cloudy, yet seasonably warm day here. The sun's going to break through, I do believe. But we're so delighted to be here and enjoy another day of life by the grace of God. And thank you for stopping by. We've been a lot remiss of late. I apologize. Uh, I'm heavily involved uh, with the Sons of the American Revolution. And I had to plan a very large dinner meeting that we held last night, our annual President's Day dinner meeting. And it's behind me now. And uh, I have many faults. One of my faults is I'm not a multitasker. I either do one thing or I do nothing. I'm not a person to do two or more things simultaneously. Um, I'm sorry, that's just the way I am. That's the way it is, as Walter Cronkite used to say. But today we want to begin our review of the book of John, the book of friendship, as we're calling it, that is our theme of this book that we've been studying for some time now, that make friends, keep friends, and restore friends for Jesus Christ, because friendship is all what Jesus is all about. He wants to be our best friend, and being God incarnate, he can do that. He could be everyone's best friend. Now, here on earth, humans are not capable of having more than one best friend, but Jesus, being God, can and will and wants to be everyone's best friend. Because the test of friendship, the ultimate test of friendship, Jesus says, hey, greater love has no man than to lay down his life for his friends. And he did. He died for his friends, each and every one, even those who would not be born for thousands of years later. We could never, ever find a greater example of friendship and love than that. And so we want to, before we move on to the epistles of John, John is the apostle of love. And when he was young, Jesus referred to him and his brother James as the sons of thunder, because they were ready to call lightning down from heaven and destroy their adversaries. Uh, Jesus called them the sons of thunder. But by the time we see John as an older man, he's the apostle of love. And we want to continue to explore the mindset of the best friend of Jesus Christ as he lived during those 3 years of ministry. And so we want to review a little bit the gospel and the highlights of the friendship aspect of the book of John. Now, as with all books in the Bible, all books have many aspects, and John is no exception. And we have chosen to focus on this friendship aspect of the book. It is by no means the only aspect, and many people would not even count it as viable. We've seen countless examples where Jesus is proactively seeking friends. So we want to begin with chapter 1, and we want to review a couple of things in that chapter. Other than dying, what was the greatest act of friendship God ever made? Has to be descending from heaven and dwelling among men as a human, so that his human body could be hung on a cross, brutalized, murdered, so that dead body could be pierced and the saving blood would be spilt. That is incredible. That God would consider us humans so valuable that the Son of God would leave heaven, leave glory, and come to earth, not as one who was wealthy and honored, but one who was poor and despised. Isaiah predicted, prophesied 750 years before this event, this incarnation. And we're referring to John chapter 1, verse 14. And long before the event, God prophesied through Isaiah about our best friend and what he did for us to prove his friendship. It's bona fide. You cannot deny the friendship of one who not only is willing to die for you, but actually does. He does so before you're born. Off the charts love. Listen to what Isaiah says about the love of the incarnation. Chapter 53 of Isaiah, reading from the King James, New King James Version, or should we say translation. Who has believed our report? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of dry ground. He has no form or comeliness, and when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. Not only was he impoverished, not only was he despised, he was a very plain person. There was nothing in the way he looked that would be compelling at all. He is despised and rejected by men. If you want to summarize the life of Christ, that's it. He was despised and rejected by men. He was a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. His whole life was sorrowful, and it was full of grief and grievous, because he dealt with his friends at their lowest state in life. Their worst circumstances is when Jesus would encounter people and befriend them. And he was surrounded by sorrow and grief constantly. And we hid, as it were, from our faces from him. And he was despised, and we esteemed him not. It didn't matter to anyone when he was living that he was so disrespected. But then in verse 4, Isaiah begins to describe what he's done for us. Despite our rejection, surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. What has Jesus done to prove his friendship? Not only did he die for us, he willingly took up our sorrows and our griefs and carried them for us. Greater love has no man than to lay down his life for his friends. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. We didn't care. We didn't care what he did. And I say we, I'm talking about collective humanity. But he was wounded for our transgression, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. His sufferings redeemed us. His sufferings saved us. He carried our sins and our transgressions and our failures and our griefs and our sorrows upon himself while we were rejecting him, while we were, in reality, murdering him. Because his death was necessitated by our sins. Verse 6, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. There's no hope. We're all sinners, no exceptions. And what has God done in response? And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of who? Us all. That's what God did. For those who hated God, he died for them and carried their sins with him. He became sin for us. We'll stop there. We know the rest of Isaiah. But our first notation of friendship in review today, John 1 and verse 14. And the Word, Jesus Christ, became flesh and dwelt among us. We beheld his glory, the glory of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Grace and truth came to save wicked men. He didn't just give orders from heaven. He came down. God himself came down and lived among us. We cannot dare despise such a friend. Well, that's our first review of the book of John and the friendship of God through Jesus Christ. Our greatest challenge is to understand how wicked we are, how desperate we are, and how there is absolutely nothing we can do about it unless we are rescued from outside. And Jesus Christ came and rescued us by becoming us, becoming human, so he can move along our side and pull us out of the sea of sin, as he did Peter in the long ago. Yes, we were all, as it were, drowning in a sea of sin. And Jesus comes to us and takes us by the hand and pulls us out and places us back into the boat of safety. Greater love has no man than to lay down his life for his friends. How, as the Hebrew writer says, how can we neglect such a great salvation? The answer is we cannot. Our friend came and saved us. If we say nothing else, that says it all. But Lord willing, we will be back Monday for another edition of Carolina Morning Meditations, where we will make, keep, and restore friends for Jesus Christ as he did for us. Hope you have a great weekend, and whatever you do, make sure that you're in the assembly of the saints for worship and to proclaim the Lord's death until he comes in the communion of the saints. Well, again, thank you for being here. I'm your host, Russ McCullough, coming to you from Mint Hill, North Carolina, in the Carolina back country. God bless you.